high voltage transmission lines running through their backyards. It started in the North Woods when the Arrowhead Weston line was being built, and a group called Save Our Unique Lands wanted to know, why won't these elected officials listen to us? And I was uniquely positioned to be able to show them why those elected officials wouldn't listen to them, because those elected officials were paid not to listen to them. And I could show them the money that had flowed from those interests to those elected officials. And I go back far enough on this issue that all the way back to the late 1990s, when the utility companies decided that they wanted to hand over the management and the worries about all these transmission lines to a single entity. They didn't all the utility companies didn't want to deal with transmission lines alone anymore. They wanted a single entity to take this out of their hands and handle it. And I advocated for that entity to be a public utility. And in the 11th hour, an amendment was slipped into the state budget, making it a private for-profit company, which became American Transmission Company. That amendment was slipped into the budget by a Democratic leader, a Senate Democratic leader who later did jail time for criminal misconduct in state office. And I was involved in shining light on the behavior that led to the prosecution of that individual and sent him off to jail. So yeah, my work did involve looking at decisions made by Democrats and Republicans. But that decision, that happened to be made by a Democratic leader, was contrary to the public interest. We should have had a transmission company that was a public utility. Instead, we got a private for-profit company. And that private for-profit company only makes a profit by building more transmission lines. So we have, since that time, built all this unnecessary transmission capacity in our state. Capacity we do not need, because electricity usage has been flat or even declining. And so we don't need more transmission capacity because the use just isn't growing the way the transmission capacity is. But because we've got this private for-profit company that is building all these unnecessary power lines, we've gone from a state that had some of the lowest electricity rates in the Midwest to having the second highest electricity rates in the Midwest. We went from cheapest electricity in our region to the second most expensive electricity in our region. And to me, that is a classic example of the problem underneath the problems. So I talk everywhere I go about how we're not going to get good health care from a sick political system, and we're not going to get living wages from a dying democracy. And when people talk about gun violence, one of the things I tell them is we're not going to get anything more than thoughts and prayers out of elected officials after each new mass shooting, as long as elected officials are paid to take no other action. There's a problem underneath these problems. So then, when lawmakers have twice now passed laws to try to resuscitate a 19th century industry like mining, 2 mining bills have been passed. And the people who were fighting the Crandon mine, and then the fight over the proposed mine in the Pinocchio Hills, and those advocates who are trying to stop that activity because of their concern about water quality and about the preserving our landscape and our natural environment, they came to me again and they said, why on earth are we trying to resuscitate a 19th century industry that's now a largely jobless industry? Why aren't we doing something like promoting a clean energy economy? Why are we doing this? And I was able to show them $16 million in donations from pro-mining interests to state lawmakers and $25,000 in donations from those opposed to them.